The Kindness Challenge by Timothy Ewing. Chapter 1. The Constant Fighting. In a small, quiet town filled with friendly people lived two siblings, Amelia and Ethan Bennett. Their home was a cozy 3-bedroom rancher with a big driveway, a small flower garden, and a beautiful tree with pink flowers in front. Although their house was usually filled with laughter and love, it had recently become a place of constant fighting and arguments. Amelia, the older sister, was 10 years old. She had pristine, well-kept strawberry blonde hair and bright blue eyes that sparkled with mischief. She loved to play tricks on her little brother, Ethan, who was 8. Ethan had short blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a fiery spirit. He was small but fierce, never backing down from a challenge, especially when it came from Amelia. Every morning, the Bennett household started with a commotion. Amelia would sneak into Ethan's room and hide his favorite toy car. When Ethan woke up and found his car missing, he would stomp around the house, demanding Amelia return it. Amelia would laugh, enjoying the chaos she created. "Amelia, give it back!" Ethan would shout, his face turning red with frustration. "Come and get it!" Amelia would taunt, holding the toy car just out of his reach. This teasing and fighting continued throughout the day. During breakfast, Amelia would steal bites of Ethan's pancakes, and Ethan would kick her under the table. When they played outside in the yard, Amelia would hide behind the big oak tree and jump out to scare Ethan, and Ethan would chase her, determined to get back at her. Their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, tried their best to teach them about kindness and respect, but Amelia and Ethan seemed stuck in their ways. Mr. Bennett, a tall man with kind eyes, would sit them down and explain the importance of being nice to each other. "Amelia, Ethan, you two need to learn to get along," he would say patiently. "Life is much better when we're kind to one another." Mrs. Bennett, with her warm smile and gentle voice, would add, "Imagine how much fun you could have if you worked together instead of fighting all the time." But the very next day, the bickering would start all over again. Chapter 2. Granny Gladys's Visit. One sunny morning, their grandmother, Granny Gladys, came to visit. Granny Gladys's arrival was always an event. Her bags were filled with homemade cookies, new knitting projects, and gifts wrapped in colorful paper. Granny was known for her wisdom and her gentle way of teaching important lessons. She had silver hair and she wore glasses that made her look very wise. Her visits were always special, filled with stories and laughter. As she arrived, Granny Gladys noticed the tension between Amelia and Ethan. She saw Amelia sticking out her tongue at Ethan, and Ethan glaring back at her with his hands on his hips. As she settled in, she kept a close eye on Amelia and Ethan, noticing how quickly their squabbles and fights began. Granny Gladys decided it was time to intervene and try to help the two get along. "Come here, my dear children." Granny Gladys called Amelia and Ethan as they played in the backyard. Her voice was soft but firm, and the siblings knew better than to ignore her. Amelia and Ethan approached their grandmother, curious about what she had to say. They sat down beside her on the back step, their fighting momentarily stopped. "I have a story to share," she began, her voice warm and inviting. As Granny Gladys began to tell them a story, her animated voice quickly drew them into her tale. She spoke of two friends, Sam and Alex, who used to fight all the time, just like Amelia and Ethan. She described how their constant teasing and arguing made them both sad and lonely. One day, Granny Gladys continued, Sam and Alex decided they were tired of being angry all the time. They made a pact to be kind to each other for 1 week. They encouraged each other, helped each other, and discovered how much better life was when they were kind. Granny Gladys's story had a big impact on Amelia and Ethan. They saw themselves in Sam and Alex and realized how much their fighting hurt them both. Then Granny Gladys issued the two of them a challenge. Just like in my story, Sam and Alex worked together for a week to be kind. I want to challenge you both to do the same. I want you both to be kind to each other, encourage each other, help each other, and speak kindly. Let's see what happens. "You think we can do it, Amelia?" Ethan asked hesitantly. Amelia shrugged, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "I guess we could try," she replied, her voice lacking its usual confidence. They were hesitant, but agreed. They were curious about what might change if they could break their cycle of fighting. Chapter 3. The Challenge Begins. The first day of the challenge was harder than Amelia and Ethan expected. Amelia still wanted to tease Ethan, and Ethan still felt like tattling on Amelia. But they both remembered Granny Gladys's story and tried their best to hold back. At breakfast, Amelia poured the syrup for Ethan without making a sarcastic comment. Ethan, in return, didn't kick Amelia under the table. It felt strange at first, but it was nice to be treated kindly for a change. When they went outside to play, Amelia saw Ethan struggling to reach a high branch in the tree where his kite was stuck. Normally, she would have teased him, calling him names and leaving him to figure it out on his own. But today was different. She sighed, feeling the familiar urge to taunt him, but instead she walked over and climbed up the tree herself. The rough bark scraped her palms, but she kept going, determined to stick to the challenge. She carefully pulled the kite free and climbed back down. "Thanks, Amelia," Ethan said, surprised but grateful. His voice was soft, almost as if he didn't trust this new version of his sister. Throughout the day, they continued to catch themselves before they fell into their old habits. At one point, Amelia accidentally bumped into Ethan, almost knocking him over. Ethan's first instinct was to shove her back, but he paused, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Watch where you're going," he said instead. "Sorry," Amelia mumbled, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Normally, she would have denied that she did anything, but this time she just felt bad. As the day continued, they were determined to see the challenge through, but the effort it took left them both feeling exhausted by the end of the day. Chapter 4. Small Changes. Amelia found that encouraging Ethan made her smile, even though it felt awkward at first. One afternoon, while playing a board game with their dad, she noticed Ethan was struggling to figure out which piece to move. Normally, she would have teased him for being slow, but instead she leaned over and quietly offered some advice. "You might want to move your knight," she whispered, pointing to the game board. Ethan looked up at her, his eyebrows raised in surprise. "Really?" Amelia nodded, a smile playing on her lips. "Yeah, it's a good move." Ethan took her advice, and when he won the game, he looked at her with newfound respect. "Thanks, Amelia," he said, genuinely appreciative. For the first time, Amelia felt proud for helping her brother. Ethan, too, began to change. When Amelia couldn't reach a book on a high shelf, Ethan got the step stool and climbed up to get it for her without being asked. "Here," he said, handing it over with a shy smile. "Thanks," Amelia replied, taken aback by his kindness. Slowly, the resentment and anger they had toward each other began to fade. They still had their moments, of course. Amelia was still tempted to tease Ethan when he struggled with his homework, and Ethan still felt the urge to hide Amelia's things when she annoyed him. But those moments were becoming fewer and farther between. The hardest part was resisting the temptation to fall back into old habits. There were times when Amelia felt like she was about to burst, holding back a snide comment or a joke at Ethan's expense. And Ethan found it difficult not to retaliate when Amelia's teasing became too much, even though it was much milder now. But each time they chose kindness over conflict, it became a little easier. Their parents noticed the change too. Mr. Bennett watched as Amelia and Ethan worked together to build a fort in the living room, using blankets and cushions. There were no arguments, just teamwork and laughter. Mrs. Bennett joined them, bringing cookies and milk. "It's so nice to see you two getting along," she said, smiling. Amelia and Ethan exchanged a glance, realizing how much better life was when they were kind to each other. Chapter 5. A Test of Patience. Midway through the week, a big argument tested their commitment to the challenge. Amelia accidentally broke Ethan's favorite toy car when they were playing together in the playroom. Ethan's eyes filled with tears, and he felt a surge of anger. "You always ruin everything," he shouted. Amelia felt awful. She wanted to snap back, but she remembered Granny Gladys's challenge. "I'm really sorry, Ethan. It was an accident. I didn't mean to push it that hard. I'll do whatever I can to fix it." Ethan took a deep breath, struggling to stay calm. "It's okay, Amelia. I know you didn't mean to." Granny Gladys, who had witnessed the exchange, approached them. "I'm proud of you both," she said. "It's not easy to stay kind when you're upset, but you did it." She helped Amelia and Ethan repair the toy car, showing them how to work together patiently. It was a tough lesson, but it brought them even closer together. Chapter 6. The Final Test. By the end of the week, Amelia and Ethan had grown closer than they ever thought possible. But there was one final test that would show just how much they had changed. It happened on Saturday afternoon. Amelia had been working on a puzzle for hours at the kitchen table, and she was almost finished. Ethan, bored and feeling mischievous, couldn't resist the urge to mess with her one last time. He grabbed the final puzzle piece and ran as fast as he could down the hall. "Ethan!" Amelia exclaimed, her eyes narrowing. "Give it back!" she screamed, chasing close behind after him. Ethan then stopped, his smile faltering. He wanted to continue teasing her, but something inside him had changed. He saw the frustration in her eyes, and he remembered how much it used to hurt when she did the same to him. Slowly, he brought the piece out from behind his back and handed it to her. Amelia took it with gratitude. She placed it in the puzzle, completing it with a smile. "Thanks, Ethan," she said, looking at him with newfound respect. Ethan shrugged, but there was a small smile on his face. "No problem." In that moment, they both realized how much they had grown. They had learned that being kind to each other was much more rewarding than fighting, and that working together made everything better. Granny Gladys watched from the living room, a proud smile on her face. She knew that Amelia and Ethan had passed the test, and that their relationship was stronger because of it. Chapter 7. The New Normal. Kindness had become a habit for Amelia and Ethan. They enjoyed each other's company and found new ways to support and encourage one another. On Sunday afternoon, as a final thank you, Amelia and Ethan decided to plan a special surprise for Granny Gladys. They wanted to show her how much they appreciated her wisdom and kindness. They whispered and giggled as they made their plans, feeling more united than ever. Amelia gathered flowers from the garden, arranging them into a beautiful bouquet. Ethan made a handmade card, filled with drawings and heartfelt messages. Together, they baked a fresh batch of cookies, just like Granny Gladys had taught them. When Granny Gladys came out of her bedroom, she was greeted with the sight of Amelia and Ethan standing proudly holding their gifts. "Surprise!" they shouted in unison. Granny Gladys's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Oh my, this is wonderful. Thank you both so much." As the cookies finished baking, they sat down with Granny Gladys and talked about their week. "It's amazing how much better everything feels," Amelia said. "I like being friends," Ethan added, smiling at his sister. Granny Gladys beamed with pride. "You've both done wonderfully. Kindness has a way of transforming not just our relationships, but our entire lives. I'm so proud of you two for taking this challenge seriously and not giving up when things got tough." They spent the rest of the day together, playing games, telling stories, and enjoying each other's company. The atmosphere in the Bennett household had changed dramatically. It was now filled with laughter, love, and a newfound harmony that everyone cherished. As the sun began to set, Amelia and Ethan sat with Granny Gladys on the porch swing. "I'm so glad you're here, Granny," Ethan said, leaning his head on her shoulder. "Me too," Amelia added. "Thank you for helping us see how important it is to be kind." Granny Gladys hugged them both tightly. "Always remember, my dear ones, that kindness is a gift you give to each other every day. It's a gift that will keep your hearts connected and your home filled with joy and happiness." Chapter 8. The New Habits. With Granny Gladys's visit coming to an end, Amelia and Ethan wanted to make sure they continued their new habit of kindness. They created a kindness chart and hung it on the refrigerator. Each day, they would write down one kind thing they did for each other. Amelia helped Ethan with his homework, and Ethan shared his favorite toy with Amelia. They began to realize that being kind didn't just make the other person feel good, it made them feel good too. One evening, as they were sitting together reading, Amelia looked at Ethan and said, "I'm really glad we did Granny's challenge. I like being friends with you." Their parents were delighted with the change. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett had noticed how peaceful and happy their home had become. They knew it was all thanks to Granny Gladys's wisdom and the effort Amelia and Ethan had put into changing their behavior. Chapter 9. Spreading Kindness. Inspired by their success, Amelia decided to share her newfound wisdom with her teacher, Mrs. Parker. She told her about Granny's challenge and how it had transformed and improved her relationship with her brother. Mrs. Parker, with a huge smile on her face, said, "That's absolutely wonderful, Amelia. I'm so proud of you. This would be perfect for our upcoming Friendship Day rally in the auditorium. Would you and your brother be willing to share your story?" Hesitant at first, she finally agreed. The day finally came for the big friendship rally at school. Mrs. Parker introduced them to the audience full of fellow classmates and asked them to share their story. Nervously, Amelia began, "We used to fight all the time, but then our Granny Gladys gave us a challenge to be kind to each other for 1 week." Amelia continued, "At first, it was really hard and felt weird, but the more we tried to be kind, the easier it got." Ethan added, "Now we're best friends, and we want everyone to feel the same happiness we do." Ethan continued by sharing some examples of how they worked together by building a fort, making cookies, and even creating a kindness chart. Amelia concluded, "So we want to offer you the same challenge our grandmom gave to us. For 1 week, be kind to each other, encourage each other, help each other, and speak kindly." Their classmates applauded, and Mrs. Parker smiled proudly at them. "Thank you, Amelia and Ethan. You've shown us all how powerful kindness can be." Their classmates all decided to take the challenge. Soon, the whole school was buzzing with acts of kindness. They helped each other with schoolwork, they shared their snacks, and played together without fighting. All the teachers noticed the positive change and praised their students for their new behaviors. Chapter 10. A Lasting Change. Granny Gladys eventually had to go back to her own house, but she left Amelia and Ethan with one final gift: a journal where they could write about their acts of kindness and the positive changes they noticed. Day after day, Amelia and Ethan continued to fill the pages of the journal, documenting their journey of kindness. They looked back on their earlier entries and saw how far they had come. Their relationship had transformed from one of constant bickering and fighting to one of love, support, and genuine friendship. Years later, Amelia and Ethan would still look back on that time with Granny Gladys as the turning point in their lives. They grew up, but the lessons they learned about kindness stayed with them. They continued to encourage, help, and speak kindly to each other and to those around them. And every time they saw Granny Gladys, they thanked her for the gift of kindness that had changed their lives forever. A special note from the author. Dear readers, thank you for joining Amelia and Ethan on their journey from conflict to kindness. As I wrote this story, I was reminded of the timeless biblical principles that teach us the importance of love, kindness, and forgiveness. In the Bible, we see countless examples of how love can transform relationships and bring healing where there once was hurt. One powerful example of sibling rivalry in the Bible is the story of Jacob and Esau. These twin brothers, born to Isaac and Rebekah, struggled with jealousy and competition from the moment they were born. Their rivalry escalated to the point where Jacob, with the help of his mother, deceived their father Isaac into giving him the blessing that rightfully belonged to Esau. This betrayal led to years of separation and bitterness between the brothers. But the story doesn't end there. Despite the pain and betrayal, God worked in their hearts, and years later, when Jacob and Esau finally met again, they chose forgiveness over revenge. In Genesis 33:4, we read, "But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept." This moment of reconciliation shows us the power of forgiveness and the healing that can come when we choose to let go of our grudges. Ephesians 4:32 tells us, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." This verse perfectly captures the heart of Amelia and Ethan's story. Through their challenge, they learned that kindness isn't just about being nice. It's about reflecting the love that God shows us every day. In a world where it's easy to fall into patterns of anger and resentment, I hope this story encourages you to choose kindness, to forgive quickly, and to seek peace in your relationships. But more than that, I invite you to take the kindness challenge for yourself or with your family. Just as Amelia and Ethan discovered, when we let go of our pride and embrace love, we open the door to deeper, more meaningful connections with those around us. Imagine what could happen if, for 1 week, you and your family committed to showing kindness in every situation, no matter how difficult. How might your relationships change? How might your hearts be transformed? I believe that as you embark on this challenge, you'll experience the joy and harmony that come from living in God's grace. May this story inspire you to live out the biblical call to love one another. And may your homes be filled with the blessings that kindness brings. With love and blessings, Timothy Ewing. The Kindness Challenge. We all have the power to make the world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. The Kindness Challenge is a commitment to practice kindness in our daily lives, to be patient, to forgive, and to spread positivity wherever we go. The Challenge. For the next 7 days, commit to showing kindness in every situation, no matter how difficult. Whether it's helping a friend, being patient with a sibling, or simply offering a smile, every act of kindness counts. How to participate. 1. Think about ways you can show kindness each day. 2. Make a list of kind acts you want to accomplish during the week. 3. Encourage your family members or friends to join you in the challenge. 4. Reflect on how these acts of kindness make you feel and the positive impact they have on others. Sign the pledge. If you agree to take on the Kindness Challenge, sign your name below as a pledge to spread kindness and positivity.